All right, everybody. So we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce James, Jan, and
Cindy.
Cindy. Oh, John, sorry. Almost. They will be guiding us through ITIN loans. This is going to be recorded, guys. So if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to. We have several people on Zoom. Please feel free to type them in the message, or you can either email me as we go, and I'll go ahead and also ask them through the class. But I'm gonna go ahead and have you guys take it away. The microphone is right here. You guys can kind of move this around.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I gotta clip it on.
You can, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so perfect. Let's start with ITIN full docs, probably our most popular out of the three we've done that we have currently. We actually just had revisions made, so we actually allowed for higher loan amounts and higher LTVs. So we're going back to 90% LTV to get to that program at 90 or 89. You're gonna need the 720 FICO, housing history for the last 12 months, VOR, cancel checks. If institutional, we can get away with just the VOR. And it's gonna be calculated income the same way as Fannie and Freddie. It's the last 2 years income, 2 years tax returns. If they're a wage earner, that W-2 for the last 2 years, and paycheck stubs. So the last month, most recent. And yes, the big thing here when it comes to ITIN, I know we've done a couple together, is that the exceptions, we're exception-based lenders. We actually allow up to 4 exceptions on every file. Typically, there'll be about 2 to 3 on every one of these ITIN files, whether it's documentation is expired or something they don't meet the residual income, something along those lines. So documentation we want to see is obviously 2 pages of the ITIN letter, unexpired passport from country of origin, and a California ID if the loan is going to be here in California. So if they only have 2 of those 3s, we can actually take that and actually get an exception for that.
What's the ITIN paperwork?
It's going to be the ITIN letter from the IRS.
Is there any particular name to it, or?
It'll just be called an ITIN letter. I mean, it's going to have all their information, their number and everything on there as well. It's typically 2 pages. So yeah, and then we'll get that, when they apply for the ITIN letter. Like I said, as long as we have 2 of the 3, we should be good on that. Because a lot of times the passport is expired. If you do need an alternative, we can always go to their consulate and get a consulate ID as well in lieu of the passport.
Quick question, is there an amount of time that has to, well, never mind, it's an ITIN. I'm thinking of a resident body.
Oh, okay, yeah. And another cool thing about this program is you have you can also put a couple different borrowers on it. Someone who has a C8 visa type, was be asylum seekers, as well as anyone that had maybe a resident card that is expired or anything along those lines. Cool thing is we don't need a work visa, we don't need a visa or work permit on this program as well. So we had through ITIN program.
What about Social Security? Can you mix them with ITIN?
You cannot mix them. So I know at times you'll see a social that appears on the paycheck stubs or W-2s. Typically, that's not going to belong to the borrower. So the way we get around it is we just want to make sure the tax returns is filed with the ITIN number, and we're actually do an SSA 89 form to verify that that social does not belong to the borrower. Because if they do have a social, then they would be a non-permanent resident. That'd be a different program for them.
So let me clarify something for you really quickly, just in case. Sure. I just want to add, what he's saying is that anybody who has a social security card, then they would be eliminated from using the ITIN as the prime. Well, you can't have a co-applicant that has the social security, but they are not the primary in it. Okay, if that makes sense. Right. And then back to your, yes, and back to your question back there. ITIN, and to add to what James is saying, is that that's anybody who does not have a documentable residency status. So an asylum seeker who's filing and they've got their paperwork underway, they're an ITIN because they don't have a documentable, verifiable identification status, residency status, right? Or anything. Did your residency expire? You're an ITIN. Back when San Jose was debating on the people that were that didn't have status, that were born here but they didn't have citizenship, same thing, they would be under ITIN. Anybody who doesn't have a documentable residency status, all in ITIN. If it's questionable, it's an ITIN. Okay,
Does that fall into illegal?
sorry?
Into illegal? No.
I mean, to me, it just means they don't have a documentable residency status, because some people, they're here. And, you know, I don't know, I don't work with INS, but if you came and you're like, I'm under asylum and I filed this paperwork, I'm not sure if they would be deportable or not, so I don't know if it's illegal, but for us, for the paperwork involved and for eligibility, they must, in an ITIN, you do not have that bona fide status yet.
Now, I have I was talking to a gentleman who has an ITIN. He was using a social and now he's filing his taxes as an ITIN, but he pays, he's self-employed, he pays himself through the business. And his accountant told him he could continue using that social security, so his W-2 has a social security number, his taxes have the ITIN. So you can't combine those two together, he'd have to do a bank statement only.
So the question, so my question would be, is this person now, do they have a legitimate residency status?
Yeah,
Then they would no longer be an ITIN.
no, they don't, he's an ITIN, but that social that he was using before.
Oh,
His
okay,
account, even though he's been registered doing his ITIN, the accountant told him to pay himself, you know, through W-2, but he could use still that.
got it.
And I
Okay.
was like, well, why would you do that?
Well, let me give you an example, and I don't know, way back when, my family made their way here, my mom, I know, she handed out my social security number to a couple of my aunts, we'll put that. And so they may or may not have been using a social security number, they weren't, they were using mine, so it wasn't theirs, so it could have appeared on their paycheck stubs, right? But then later on, this person could have their ITIN. We'll ignore the fact that there is a mismatch there. Other lenders actually will disqualify you from doing that, and you can't if they see a different social on a W-2 or on paycheck stubs or anywhere else that's erroneous. If they see that mismatch, it's ineligible anymore.
So that's considered like one of your exceptions, we can use that W-2.
Yeah, we do, you can. The only thing that we need to make sure is the ITIN is where the income is being corroborated, right? So if it's a full doc transaction, we will pull transcripts on it, we will execute a 4506. We're going to do that based on the ITIN number. We'll probably ask you for a letter of explanation if we have a mismatch on the social that's appearing somewhere else in the file.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
May I add something real quick? So with your situation, we could either go bank statement or full done. So if they have enough income to qualify for full done, we could go take that route. If not, we could go bank statement, we'll utilize 100% of the business deposit as income. Okay, so you do have two options with your situation. No 4506 on our banks, we don't ask for 4506.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I think a question in the chat.
Oh, no, it's me.
Oh,
Letting them know.
Okay. And going back to what you're saying, the way that you would kind of get around that situation, that's why we fill out the SS-89 form. That way they actually verify that social group belong to them and they indeed are, supposed to be on that program.
Just one thing, I know, and I want to make sure that I heard it correctly.
Yeah.
One has an ITIN, one has a social co-borrower. Doesn't work.
It does work. It would just have to go into the ITIN program and not one of our other programs.
Okay,
ITIN
thank
is an ITIN.
Yeah, as long as there's one borrower or, as long as one of them has an ITIN, it would have to go in one of the three programs.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, cool. Kind of hard back onto here. So we do actually allow for borrowers on this program that don't have a social, like you can see here, we can do it at a 65 LTV. I mean, they don't have a FICO score. That's actually something that we've now recently added to our bank statement loan as well, and that's gonna be at 50 LTV as well. Yeah,
Sorry, I have a question. The FICO score, would that be run under
65.
the ITIN number?
Yes,
yes.
Okay.
usually the one that starts with a 9.
so 65% down payment and no FICO score? Or what is one?
35% down, 65 LTV if the borrower doesn't have a FICO score, so that is an option as well.
Oh, okay. Where is that one?
At the very bottom.
At the very bottom.
What's number?
That's a new one.
Do you have that one, you have that one?
That one, James, we could actually, we was just released
This
very
morning.
this morning, early this morning.
Should go to you.
Yes. I did send that to you, so, okay, thank you so much.
So this is basically your guys' ITIN matrix, like Jane is mentioning. there's a lot of changes that just occurred. We do now have an 11% down ITIN program, which I know everybody's kind of been asking.
That's all.
So please take a look at that matrix. There is, as of today, an 11% down matrix for that.
Okay, and I'm sure that that's the most popular and what you get the most inquiries about is about 10% down. So I'm gonna harp on what you need to be able to, kind of get to that, down payment requirement. Obviously, you see here, it's gonna be 720 FICO, 6 months reserves. But the big thing that's also important on this, we do need 12 months housing history, and we do need have no payment lates in that 12 months. And that's gonna be verified, like I said, with the VOR and cancel checks. If it's institutional, we can get away with just the VOR. Another thing as well, this will be max DPI of 43% at 90. At lower LTVs, we can go to 50 with a $3,500 income. That's something that sometimes we don't meet. We can also ask for an exception for, but at 90, we will need to be capped at that DTI.
All right, guys, so we do see you have a couple questions here. So Maria, did you want to answer Maria's question? Right there on the chat. So it says, since it's full doc, can you take gift funds on the down payment?
We can. So let me go over to that part. We can take gift funds on there. We do need 10% from the borrower, and they do need to cover their own reserves. Anything, so as long as they get gift funds to that remaining amount, then we're good to go. If they get anything, if they can cover the 10% or their own reserves, then we actually consider that as 100% gift, and we will need 35% down on there as well.
Some people don't.
I have another question on the gift.
Yeah.
If there's an ITIN with the for sale by owner and the sister is gifting, obviously all the 20% down, and the closing costs for the buyer and the seller just to be covered, it's gifted to the brother. Does 10% of that gift equity still have to come from the buyers, the brothers' own funds, or it's a gift, it's a for sale?
That would be considered for sale by owner gift of equity. That actually would have a little bit more restricted on the LTV. I believe you're about to be a 75% max LTV on that program, opposed to 90 if you were to be a standard purchase transaction.
25%. Does any of that percent that being gifted for the down have to be the buyer's funds, 10%, or can it be all gift equity?
I believe it can be all gift equity, correct?
Go to non-arm's length. We have different, one more.
Right that way.
Right, one more, right here. So if it's purchased between family members, 15% reduction from maximum. So if we're trying to do 85, it'll be capped at 70. I'm sorry, not 70, 74 or 70.
So you'll be 74.
74,
If you try to go
okay.
89, yeah.
And then Ivan, you did mention, any question, do you have a program for borrowers with no FICO but has a social security? I mean, we're talking about ITIN today, Ivan, so we can definitely address that separately.
Question.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
No, I'm just trying to understand the question. So no FICO is answer. You already answered that question with no FICO, and the down payment assistance working that way.
Yeah, so he
Okay.
mentioned no FICO is 65% LTV.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Well, do you guys have any other questions when it comes to ITIN full doc?
Let's talk about DTI first.
Okay.
Yeah, and to make sure if they have an incomplete housing history, 12 months housing history, also if they're living rent free, they will be capped at 75. Used to be 80, but our new guidelines is actually 75 now. So again, incomplete 12-month housing history, living rent free, will be counted to 75% LTV. Okay, as of DTI, anything above go under ratio down. So the standard back end ratio is 43. Okay, if they have a residual income of 3,500 and it says you're anything above 80.01, you'll be capped at 43 back end ratio. Okay, front end we don't look at, and for Green Box we don't look at front end, just back end. So again, primary residence up to 50 if they have a minimum residual income 3,500. What is residual income? Somebody, I'm gonna give you guys an example, 10,000 monthly income for the borrower. They have total liabilities, credit cards, including their mortgage, their new PITI is total 5,000. Remaining, we have 5,000 left. So that means they have 5,000 residual income left. Okay, with that being said, we could go to 50% back-end ratio. Okay. We also, somebody, if you have a borrower that came from hard money, there's no seasoning required for that. We're able to help them out. Cash out, they have to have 6 months seasoning. But if it's under, again, 6 months, we will still use purchase price plus improvements. It has to be 12 months in order for us to use market value. Okay. For rate and term, only 6 months, we'll ask for the market value rather than purchase price or improvements, plus improvements. Okay, so rate and term, we'll use market value if they have 6 months season for that scenario there. Okay, go up.
For cash out, can you use the cash out towards the season? I think
For which one?
for reserves, if they were to do a refi cash out, can you use the cash out as part of the reserves?
Oh, yeah, cash out should be used towards reserves on this.
Okay, if they use cash out.
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
cash out towards reserves. I think you get confused about the seasoning and be able to use the
Oh,
price
okay.
value versus purchase price at that point in time.
Also, what's important nowadays, what I'm seeing a lot is seller concession. Okay, go up, down, actually, go down. Seller concession. So anything above 80%, non-applicable, right? So from 75.01 to 80%, we could do max 3%. Anything below 75, we could do 6% max seller concession. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of those lately, so just I thought I'd bring that up. That's it for that, for full doc. Any questions on full doc?
So seller concession only at 75%.
Or
80, 75.01 to 80 would be 3%. And then maximum will be 6 for anything 75 and below.
I do have a question. I stepped out to answer a call from a realtor. I don't know if you guys covered this, but the times that I've never done an ITIN loan. But the times that I've been inquired to do the ITIN loans, I've noticed that a pattern where there's a lot of people who have an ITIN loan who only use that ITIN loan to file taxes, but they have all of their documentation, W-2 pay stubs with a different social. Would that be acceptable, or do you want uniformity in all?
Yeah, that's acceptable. We did harp on that a little bit earlier, but yeah, so typically on most time you will see if it's a, wage earner, the W-2 and the paycheck stub will have a social that doesn't match. As long as they file the taxes under the ITIN number, we have no problem with that.
Okay.
And so that's something that we can do as well. And then we fill out an SSA 89 form that'll actually just prove that social doesn't belong to them to make sure that it should be on that program.
Okay, thanks.
So pretty much it is acceptable. It's okay with us. We understand the situation. And no visa requirement as well. Most companies, they require visa. For us, when we look at visa, we look at the file more like a foreign national program. And so us, no visa requirement. That's the reason why we're so successful with ITIN programs. Because again, we understand their situation. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Wonderful.
Angelica, yes, so they did touch on that, on the equity. It can be gift of equity. So I believe they said that it was 65.
Go up to,
So he's gonna go back up to that, but yes, they can do gift of equity.
Thank you.
Absolutely. He's gonna just show you the matrix on that, but yeah, so you can.
one more, keep going up there. So it'd be right here. 65%, number 2.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Any other questions for full doc?
For credit and the an ITIN loan credit, we cannot as trade lines are not acceptable, correct?
Trade lines go under credit.
What kind of trade line?
like,
So we have 2 trade line requirements for us. Okay, but you could also have one if they have that trade line for the last 24 months, right there. So it'd be right here, 2 trade lines open, reporting for 12+ months with an activity in the last 12 months, or 1 open trade line for 24+ months with an activity in the last 12 months.
And
Okay.
if your question was non-traditional trade lines, I'll be max LTV 65.
Okay.
So phone bill, anything like that, that wouldn't be traditional credit.
I mean,
We would just need a minimum of 1 for 24 months or 2 for 12 months. It works the same way as our other requirements, it's just that I'll actually have a reduction of LTV.
Let's just say they don't meet their trade line requirements. As long as we have great compensating factors, we'll ask for an exception. Okay, an average ITIN bar that I do see, we're having about 2 to 3 exceptions per file. We have one right now in our pipeline that has 6. Okay,
Which is the max?
max is 4. Oh, so you see how we're very lenient, but we want to make sure we make things
That
happen.
makes sense.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why we're so successful with this program here. Any other questions for Full Doc?
Anyone on Zoom have questions for the Full Doc ITIN program? You can go ahead. Okay, yeah.
I was saying no.
So we're gonna, if you guys don't have questions, if something does come up into your mind, just please, go ahead and unmute or put it on the chat. They're gonna go ahead and touch on the bank statement ITIN as well.
One thing I do want to add, when you guys are structuring income for this ITIN Full Doc, it's the same structure as FAN. 12 months, 2 years tax returns, W-2s 2 years, 30 days worth of pay. So it's the same structure as Fanning. Okay. A lot of people are concerned, like the first time they're hearing ITIN, they get all flustered because they're like, how do we structure this? It's exactly the same. It's income less, but except it comes with an ITIN number. Okay.
or self-employment, correct?
Self-employment, we're about correct. So if they're showing enough income in their taxes, we could go Full Doc. Okay, but if they're not, then we have this option here, which James is about to talk about right now.
Okay, cool. So this will be our bank statement program. We only have a 24-month option on this. The way that we calculate income is really cool here. You take 100% of all deposits over the last 24 months, and we do have a minimum expense factor of 10%. Obviously, that's to be business dependent. That will be obviously verified through a CPI letter, and we do have an unaudited 24-month P&L will be required on this program. No expense factor on this. And then, like I said, we could have a max LTV of 80%. Housing history, we need 12 months cancel checks and BOR as well. If we don't have that, like John said, living rent free or sometimes even paying cash, that will be a max LTV of 75% on this program. That was recently changed. And another cool thing we just added as well is we actually have no FICO available on this at 55 LTV. So this is really good for someone who's going to be self-employed, writing too much off on their taxes, and they need another option opposed to that Full Doc route.
One thing I hope you guys heard him, he said unaudited P&L for what we do with this. That has to be done by a licensed CPA, enrolled agent. If your bar does not have a CPA, we have a CPA we can refer you guys to. If you guys go through, his name's actually the name of the company is Mofrad. We're willing to reimburse up to $500 if you guys go through him. Okay, just to let you know that option is available. Okay.
Well, question, when you say that 100% of the business deposits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they deposit in.
As long as it's business related, we'll use every single deposit.
We focus on the deposit, not the withdrawals.
Correct, deposits. So even if they have cash deposits, we could have, if it is business related, we could have the CPA state that it is business related. Other thing too, in regards to like large deposits, we'll ask them to be sourced. How do we source deposits? We'll ask for either an invoice or cancel checks. Okay. Also, we do have a dedicated bank statement department that can help make your life easier. I know it's a lot of paperwork, but we do need all pages, all 24 months. That would include today's November. We want to make sure October 2022 is in there as well. If you guys could send all that information to James, give us about 24 hours. We'll have an income so we can guide you guys on what to put on your 1003.
So on an ITIN program, you're saying that if, whether it's a business account or a personal account, you don't take the 50%.
Or commingled.
That's not taken into consideration for business.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, let me add something to that really quickly, because depending on the demographic of business, there are some guidances that will be taken no matter what happens. One thing is, when we say we're taking 100% of the business deposit, this is true. We will use an expense factor ratio, like James mentioned before. There is a minimum expense factor ratio of 10%. But based on the line of business that you're doing, that can change, right? So if you have someone who's a real estate agent and really doesn't have that many expenses and works out of their home or Starbucks, right? That's going to be different than we have on our guidelines. I believe we still have them. There's a couple of businesses. If you say anything like somebody's a contractor or they're in the mode of producing something, whether they manufacture something, they will take an expense factor of 50% on it. So you want to be mindful, because let's say a contractor who builds homes, the large deposits that are going to run through his account normally based on the, whatever he's doing, whether he's building out a whole tract or, he's improving an addition on someone's home, it's going to look different. That can be different than someone who is actually a licensed contractor who focuses on home improvement and just comes in and is like, he's knocking out electrical work, he's doing plumbing, he's throwing up some drywall, painting, he's in control of all that because he's still the contractor's license, but that looks exponentially different than someone who is actually building homes. Okay, so you want to be wary of that when you look at the application, make sure that the integrity of the application is accurate. What do I mean by that? The best way to do is just go to the borrower and ask them what is the real information. And I find that most of the time when we have mishaps with this on the P&L or the way that we're calculating income, yeah, and that also goes to the large deposits that John mentioned about how we document them. Usually it's because most of us have been in the business long enough where we're like, I know what they need, I'll just tell them it's this. Don't do that. Make sure on these with bank statements that you're really getting the right information from the borrower. Take that extra time to go through the application with them and understand their stream of income, because the key is if it is a normal business deposit, we can usually support that, right? It's these oddball deposits when we see them on the account that you may find yourself in a problem trying to corroborate. If you are, and they are normal business deposits, sourcing deposits that John mentioned, we will take, let's say that you have a transfer, right? Because some people do business that way and they have a transfer that comes from one account to another, but it is going into their business account for their use or their commingled bank statement, right? That just represents them using it, doing business. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we can source it. We could tie it in, perhaps, like John said, with maybe an invoice or a contract that's not stating, right? Because on transfers, on wire transfers, unless it's coming from like a bona fide business, like a title company or something like that, the likelihood of it actually registering where it's coming from is not always there. So the way that you would do this is you would present an invoice or a bill of sale or something that ties in with a contract that shows it's his normal business, right? If the guy's a contractor and he's doing, I don't know, home improvement somewhere, and there was a wire transfer for $30,000 into his account, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, here's the estimate that I put together for Cindy Campo, and here's the invoice where she paid it in full, and that has the date that matches the deposit that's on my transaction history. That would be acceptable documentation. Just want to make sure that you guys understand that there is an expense factor on all income, and it's going to depend on the stream of income, and they're going to test it for, does that sound reasonable or not? However, all that said, a 10% expense factor ratio that we use, which is our minimum, is still much lower than many companies, because as you mentioned, many of them are they don't even care. They just take 50% of the income and that's how they do it, because they don't want to do all this work, because this is maybe more labor intensive, but it does give you the opportunity for someone to hold on to more income. And what does that do? That gives them more buying power, perhaps. It just gives them more flexibility. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like you touch base on most of the income things on that. on different businesses. One I did want to throw in there, I think you did forget is restaurants. There's one that also will kind of be flagged the same way as construction or the other ones she mentioned as well. But like I said, this will be work. I mean, have you guys ever done another bank same loan? It's gonna work the exact same way. The only difference is she did mention a expense factor. On this one, we actually don't allow for expense factor. This one does always have to be accommodated with a 24-month on out of the P&L as well.
So we do have someone asking, and I've had a couple people ask me too. So what are your typical rates either for full doc or 24 months? And I have Philip asking the same question here. Typical rates that you guys are seeing.
I was gonna say that I have the rate sheet on my phone. I can kind of go through it a little bit. So I know that and one thing I do want to mention is we don't have it as right now, but next week, me and John have been talking about it. We're actually coming out with an ARM option for ITIN loans. That way we can allow for a lower rate. Maybe someone's priced out a little bit on DTI. That's a good option for them as well. They go as refinance down the line.
So as of right now, we're actually looking maybe high 9s to 11, depending on your LTV FICO. And the goal was today, we were supposed to release our updated rates. They're supposed to be 100 to 200 basis points better than what it is now. Okay, my understanding as well, we're going to start offering ARM options for the borrower. My understanding now, you got pushed back for next week. So hang tight is going to be there, but as of right now, it'll be high 9s to 11. So 89%. I saw it this morning. We're at 720 to 739. It's at 89% LTV. It's at 11%. Okay.
Were you able to hear that, Philip? Perfect, thank you.
Just to add to that too, I'll give you the senior management perspective on that. As you know, everywhere rates right now are like chaotic. So this program is actually something that we have always done here. I know it's a real hot product that a lot of companies are trying to diversify with right now and add to their rate sheets, but we've been doing this. It's probably one of our it's closest to our core product. We do them very well, which is why we do have all these different caveats and exceptions. But keep in mind where we're at. We still have a loan that our borrowers, I mean, if right now they have legitimate residency status, they've got depth of credit, you've got 800 FICO, 60% LTV on $1 million, plus loans, and they still are having problems with pricing. This one, although we love this one, it's still credit layered risk is still higher on it because we just, we don't have all the documentation in the loan. Although we really believe in this loan, we have an extremely low default rate in this. So this is why we try to put as much as we can emphasis on putting loans together for this particular project, this particular community of people and borrowers. So that's input. So you can watch for those improvements and rates as they come. But right now, I was just having this discussion with another broker of mine earlier, and I was like, look, man, it is what it is. These rates, they are, and we can still get loans for people who qualify. And if it makes business sense for them to qualify right now, they should do it. Especially the owner occupied, there's no prepayment penalties. If the market gets better, you don't lose what you have right now. Who knows what's going to happen, right? Because none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know. As the credit market contracts, the first thing that goes are the specialty products, right? You can see that in the larger conduits where they start removing high LTVs and low FICOs. Well, these are the things that are specialty products. So we want to take advantage of these while we have them here. Okay.
Okay, to go back on this one, DTI is going to be similar for a first-time home buyer. That actually is a reduction on there. On full doc, you don't see that hit on here. It's going to be max 43 back end on that if they're a first-time home buyer, and typically you can go to 50 as well with $3,500 residual income. That will be the same as full doc as well on that.
Any other questions, guys? No, sir, what about?
On the first slide that you put there, then this is 89%. The very first line.
For full doc.
For full doc.
Yeah. It says that the loan amount maximum is 400,000.
That would be 400,000, and you do need 6 months reserves.
So that means then my purchase price, it should be more than 450.
Correct.
450, right? Because you put in 10%, and
Yeah,
450, the purchase price.
It'd be
You
like
put
449.
10%, you came up with 400 maximum amount.
That is the maximum loan amount is.
at that else.
At that LTV, the maximum is $1 million.
Right, the LTV lowers the loan amount goes up higher.
Yeah, because at 70, you can't get all the way to $1 million. So yeah, your situation technically would be instead of 450, 449 because it's 89, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but let's not get confused. Loan amount and purchase price are two different
Different,
things.
yeah.
I want to make sure.
Correct.
Well, the way you stated it was, it sounded like purchase price, although he said loan amount, but.
This is indicative of loan amount, so
Okay,
our
so
matrix
please
is working
focus on
on loan amount.
okay.
I don't have a calculator here with me, I guess we could pull it out and figure it out.
400,500.
Okay. Okay, there you go. That's for him, but yours is loan amount.
Focus on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, because I do the loan, like, okay, so that means I cannot tell the client to go and buy something for 500,000, put in 10%, because it goes into the next bracket.
Right, so the more down payment, yeah. Yeah, the more down payment that they have, obviously, their loan amount, they will be able to purchase something that's larger.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's go back to bank statements on this.
By the way, as of identification, we do want to see unexpired passport. A driver's license or a state ID, and then the ITIN that are required. I'd say maybe 7 out of 10 passports expired, right? Again, if we have great compensating factors, we'll just ask for an exception. If they have the passport presented, so we could ask for an exception. Matricula also, we could also take, so again, we require 3 identifications, just to let you know.
Expired, non-expired.
Expired, I mean, if it's expired, hopefully we have the other 2 to support. And then we'll just ask for an exception. Okay.
Okay, cool. So I did want to bring this up because on first time home buyer, it's a little bit different on bank statement opposed to full doc. There's no restrictions for a first time home buyer, but on bank statements you will see. So it will be a 680 minimum. Post the program typically goes 660. Max back in DTI will be 43 on that. You don't have the option to go to 50. 10% must come from the borrower, and if 6 months reserve as well. The one thing to keep in mind here is typically if you don't have housing history, it will be max 80 LTV. But on this one, if you are a first time home buyer, it will be 70, and 15% of the funds has to come from the borrower.
So on all ITIN programs are reserves required?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless technically you're doing a cash out, that you use the cash out towards the
Right.
reserves. And the cool thing is on this one is payment shock isn't considered. And one thing that we actually do payment shock is 200% of the previous payment as well. But if they over exceeded, we could always ask for an exception as long as we have the right compensating factors on that as well. Is there any more questions on the bank statement program or anything that's jumping out at you?
You guys are gonna be experts.
You guys are making our life easy, right?
No.
Make it hard.
I'm just afraid to ask you. It's just.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The resident, a client that was using a business account, but then they were also using the personal account to deposit checks for the business.
Okay.
How would we go about that?
Okay, so we can use multiple bank statements, like sets of 24 months.
Mhm.
The only things we want to make sure is that they're not using the same money. So if they're, getting paid, putting everything in the business account, they're paying themselves to their personal, we wouldn't be able to use both because it's, being transferred from one account to the other.
Mhm.
But we can use 2 sets of accounts that maybe, let's say I have a Wells Fargo account, I have a Bank of America account. Sometimes, my Wells Fargo might be my true business account, but I'm driving by, I have a check. There's a Bank of America, I get kind of lazy, I just want to go in and, deposit that in there. So we can actually use that as well. So we use both accounts, and we will have a 24-month unaudited P&L for both accounts to qualify them off on that income if they do indeed using 2 different accounts.
Got it.
And we would consider that account as a commingled, is using for business and work, and we can use business accounts commingled or even personal as well. Any more questions on the bank statement program? I would like to transition here to our ITIN DSCR. So on this one, it is pretty cool. One thing, as well as most lenders, are going to require a primary residence if you we're looking to do an investment program under the DSCR. So on this one, we actually don't, but there will be a 10% reduction. So max LTV is 75% with a 1-to-1. So meaning if you don't have a primary residence, you'll be max LTV of 65. If it doesn't debt service, it's going to be under 1 ratio. Then it'll be 65, will be 55 as well on that.
So quick thing, what he just said, no primary residence required for our DSCR, no income product that we offer. Okay, the same thing with our regular DSCR. That's what makes it so unique here at Bonds. Most companies will require for the bar to have primary. With us, we're okay with no primary. Okay, just keep that in mind. That's what makes it so unique. Okay. Again, it's a no doc product that we offer. It's based on rent analysis. That's going around here.
And what's the LTV again?
75.
75 would be the max, there's 10% reduction, and 65 is the max if it's not debt servicing 1-to-1. So we have those those options as well. If it's a purchase, we're going straight off the 1007 rental survey. If it's going to be a refinance and there is a borrower in there, we'll go off the lower of the two, either the lease agreement or the 1007.
Another thing that makes us so unique here, we do accept short-term rental as well. That's for DSCR for foreign national ITIN or our regular DSCR for citizens, non-perm, permanent resident.
It's like Airbnb or.
Exactly, correct.
And there's actually something new we've added with that. We now take 80% of the short-term rental.
Yep. Due to the fact that, we excluded maintenance fee, cleaning fee, that's the reason why we're only gonna use 80% of that gross income for the short term. Is it short term, right?
Yeah, short-term.
Yeah, short term, yeah.
What's the FICO requirement?
It'd be 620 is the minimum FICO.
It's pretty good.
What's your turn time on closing items?
We go based on your pace.
Yeah.
Put it that way. I myself, I'm averaging 12 to 19 business days. It really depends on appraisal, that's one. Again, we go based on your pace, so I'm gonna give you guys an example. You guys submit a condition early this morning. There's a chance that you guys will have an approval cert by the end of business day, if not the next day, the next morning, you guys will have an approval cert. Appraisal, quick question, are you guys a direct lender? You guys are.
Yes, we are.
So we do accept transfer appraisal as well. Okay, so it has to be dated 45 days for transfer appraisal. It has to, again, dated for 45 days, will need UCDP SSR, and it needs to be transferred to Green Box loans. So since if you guys have access to that internally, that'll make our life easier too. But if you guys wish that, you guys think you guys get the appraisal faster than we can, by all means, order it your end. The only downside, if you guys order it, because if we order it in our end for purchases, we will reimburse the cost of appraisal in closing. Okay, so free appraisal for purchases with us. Okay.
So on the transfer, we don't honor that is what
Correct.
he's saying. We unfortunately don't honor it. The other thing too that you wanna be wary of is if there are any 442s or 1004Ds that are necessary on it, those are also, we don't typically honor those either. I mean, it has happened on a case by case exception where the broker has actually managed to get the appraiser to go back out there and complete the reinspection, but as a rule of thumb, we don't, because as you know, sometimes it's hard to get them out there just because of their schedule. And then it's like they've got us calling them, they're like, who are you guys? We didn't do the appraisal for you. And that's what we can tend to deal with, or if not, it can be an issue maybe in closing or something like that when you're way down the line. You already, you're close to your appraisal period expiring, just all the multitude of things. So if you do have access to better service, we currently use ProTech, and that AMC seems to function well for us in most parts of the country, but you may have a different network closer of appraisers in the area that you're doing business, and it may work faster than you want to weigh the pros and cons of that. Next.
Another cool thing about this program is we actually, obviously, since it's going to be a DSCR program, there's not going to be non-occupied property. We actually allow for non-occupied co-borrowers. So let's say we want to, put a couple borrowers together to help bring all the funds, we can allow that as well. And we can invest in an LLC as well, max 4 people, and need to be 25% owner each at most. And then, like I said, it's gonna be mainly, there will be a prepaid 3-year minimum on this, and just kind of works the same way as any of the other DSCRs. Going back to the documentation needed, it's gonna be, once again, the unexpired passport. If they do not have it, we can ask for an exception, or we can use a consulate ID in lieu of ID from state, which would be California, and then the ITIN letter. But that's to be no income documentation needed.
So what we meant by that too, when you're filling out your 1003, make sure the income section is blank. Okay, I don't want to see $1. I want to see blank, but do fill out the employment section. For the 1003. Okay. Also, in regards to prepaid, our standard is 5 years with no hits towards the rate. You do have an option of no prepay, which is going to cost about 2.5 discount points. You can do a 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's going to be a hit towards the rate. Okay. So in reality, I've been with Green Box for 3.5 years. I've probably just done 4 loans that that they wanted no prepay. Most of them, I'll tell them, hey, why don't you do a 1-year prepay? Because keep in mind that discount point is going to go towards points and fees. With non-QM, it is 5 total points and fees. So that goes the 2.5 discount will go towards against your points and fees. That's going to limit you guys what you're able to charge. Okay, so keep in mind, I believe there's no restrictions for you guys, right? They are able to have prepays here.
Yeah, they should be fine on that. And I do want to harp on when it comes to credit, same thing, 2 trade lines for one. This one's gonna be a little bit different than our other programs. So it's gonna be 2 trade lines for the last 12 months, and one needs to be active within the last year. 620 minimum FICO, we can actually allow for if they only have 2 FICOs opposed to 3, take the lower of the 2 or the middle of the 3, obviously. And no bankruptcies, foreclosures, housing events, short sales, anything like that in the last 2 years as well.
I'm not sure if you guys picked up too, but he did state the ratio that we need to meet is 1 for our DSCR. The best thing about Green Box, if we don't meet the ratio, there is a backup plan, which he did say it's going to be less 10% from your max LTV. So it will be capped at 65 if the property does not debt service. Okay, how do we figure out the DSCR? It's gross income divided by PITIA. Then again, we need the ratio of 1 now. Okay.
And going back on that, we take a 1007 on a purchase. On a refi, we take the lower of a lease agreement or the 1007.
That's correct.
Questions, guys?
A lot of info, huh?
Yes. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Anybody on Zoom have any more questions on the DSCR or the 24-month bank statement? ITIN?
So I have a question. This Angelica, I knew there was a program that you can get up to 8 units using the DSCR program. And I only see 1 to 4 here. Is that still with you guys, or is it a different investor? I'm just wondering.
We still do 1 to 8 units, and we actually allow for mixed use on that program as well. The only thing is that's going to be for a citizen or non-permanent alien. Max LTV if you're a non-permanent resident alien would be 65, and only be 75. First time home buyer is 60. I can go to that. Do you mind if I go on that program? Just because obviously that wouldn't be available for someone with an ITIN number.
Correct. Okay.
So right here, the big thing, if it is a mixed use program, it will need to be the residential square footage can be larger, but commercial cannot. And most it could be 4951 residential. And that's going to be all the way up to 8 units.
Okay, so like 8 apartments, that's residential. And as long as the rents cover the mortgage, we should be okay, right?
Correct.
Cool. Thank you.
Also
For
offering the
mortgage,
mixed use as
taxes
well.
and insurance, mortgage, taxes and
And
insurance.
association.
Correct. The PITA. Got it.
What's this curious? Why 8 units? Is that like Is that because after certain units, you need to have a property management in on-site? Is that why, or that?
It's the same way that we do single family 1 to 4, then the next category is 5 to 8, and then when you do multifamily, it goes usually upwards 8 to, you know, so
And-
on, so on, so on. So it's gonna be the same. I mean, it's just a different bucket for it, so.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, because I know that once you get to 16 units, on anything, after that, you need to have it on-site manager. I thought you were going based on that, but I guess that's not.
No, it's not driven that for us, but thank you for the information on that.
I wanted to know.
This is
Yeah.
I
really,
like the 8s, me, I'm full.
Yeah,
Let's go.
cool.
you guys have a lot of 8 units here in Cerritos. I'm not familiar with the area.
Cerritos is mostly cookie cutter homes.
What about mixed use? Liquor store on the bottom, residential,
Not in the
I mean, you
Cerritos,
see that
but
in Bellflower.
Bellflower,
Bellflower.
Whittier does, and Norwalk's starting to have.
we could do those too
Some of this-
for, with this program there. But we want to make sure residential is actually, the square footage, let's see here. 65 max for mixed use, total commercial, square footage must be less than the total residential square foot. So residential has to be bigger than retail.
51%.
Yes.
Yeah, be minimum 51.49.
Then we also have, if you would scroll to the section for all the units for mixed use, so we could have, I believe,
It's like with.
one retail, 3 units, we can do that as well.
There's a breakdown, so within those 3 total units, max 1 can be commercial, then when you get to the next section, you have 2 at 5, and it just keeps going up accordingly like that. Max LTV on that is 65, or is 65 on that.
First time investor 60.
Yeah, first time investor 60, the way that we determine a first time investor, someone who's owned and operated a rental property in the last 3 years for at least 1 year history.
Another area where I see this a lot is like outside of the Great, like Downey this way, like the Firestone Boulevard, Pacific, like Huntington Park, Southgate, Bell, Cudahy, Commerce, all that area over there.
Also with our mixed use. 5 to 8 units, fix and flip, all those properties, they require 2 appraisals.
What if it's not mixed use? Can the LTV be a little bit higher?
If it's not mixed use, max LTV, if they're a seasoned investor, it would be 75. But either way, mixed use or, just 7 or 8 unit, fully residential will still require 2 appraisals. Like John said, we will reimburse the cost of an appraisal if it's ordered through us. Actually, on this program, we don't take transfers, so we'll always have to go through us. And which does help because the prices of these appraisals are significantly more than a standard appraisal.
Correct. So minimum loan amount on this one as well is 500,000. The main reason we set that to 500 is because of the cost of the appraisal. I'm seeing them somewhere from 2,000 to 4,000 per appraisal. That's the reason why, I've had borrowers, we made exception ones at 250 loan amount. They just didn't want to pay to appraisal. That's gonna cost them $8,000. That's the reason why we set the limit at 500,000. But if you have anything, maybe a little bit over 400,000, bring it up to us. I'll present it to secondary marketing, see if he's wanting to do it, then we'll let you guys know. Okay? I just don't want you guys turning down any deal until you guys go through us. Anything, even Fannie Freddie, I don't want you guys to turn them down until you guys go through us. Because as you guys can see, we have so many programs we offer. We possibly, Fannie Freddie, you guys have a deed eligible, we could also, we have a home for those loans. That's why anything outside the box, you guys just want to think about us before turning anything down.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, we just gotta make sure it's green, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Means where the money, But go ahead.
And this is kind of where we're getting kind of a breakdown for if you do want to do mixed use, like I said, 2 to 3 units, max 1 commercial, 4 to 5, max 2 commercial, 6 to 8, max 3 commercial. And this one, typically, only when it comes to a refi, we want to see, depending on if there's 4+ units, only 2 can be vacant, and between 2 to 3 units, only 1 unit can be vacant as well. And then we will just use typically, like let's say we use the lease agreement or the 1007, whichever is lower. If the property is vacant for that unit, we'll just use the 1007 on there.
Any questions? Let me add something as well, in regards to submissions. We want to make sure these files are clean, so all submissions will go through James. He does scrub the file. He does have an assistant named Johan, who will also scrub the file to avoid back and forth with our file setup team. File setup team is the team that's gonna process your loan and make sure the file gets disclosed, everything is filled out right. Again, that's the reason why I have 3 stages of scrubbing in the file. Again, it starts with James, assistant, and then our file setup. Okay, all submission has to go through him. I don't want you,
In our case, it'll go through us.
okay,
We will handle the submission for you guys.
okay. Well, again, the submissions, they have to go through James.
No, yeah.
Okay.
They go through us.
Internally, here goes from the loan officers to the
Oh.
processors thing.
Oh, okay, then it goes, okay, understood.
Anybody have any questions on Zoom? Looks like you guys are gonna be expert on all these deals.
Just want to bring up a couple more things. We do related financing as well. You know, if you guys have, you got paid with property cash, you guys come back to us for cash out. Again, for your appraisal on purchases, we will charge you borrow upfront, we will reimburse in closing. Okay. Submission goes through him. I'm always available. If you guys need any files escalated, the first stage is me. If I can't handle, then that's gonna be our Cindy here, that's gonna be handling most escalations. If I can, most escalations I could handle myself. So just keep in mind, I'm always available if you guys need, you know, James is there as well. Let me know.
Yeah, these guys, just so you know, I mean, I'm pretty busy, but as you see, I'm out here right now because these guys are probably in my office more than anyone else all the time. They have an unfair advantage, so you guys will want to use them as much as you can.
So who has submissions today? But
Today,
marketing wise, other than ITIN, again, we have a lot of programs. You just, I showed you, I passed out a custom flyer with you guys' company's logo on it, name. If you guys want any other flyers, you let us know, I'll get them created for y'all. Okay? Any other questions?
So real quick, again, let's, if you don't mind, we go back, we hash on the 11% down, ITIN. What's the requirement to get an 11%? What is there, it's higher FICO, what is it? What's the steps on that?
720. I know.
720,
Yes.
okay, there.
And we also want to make sure that we're maxing our LTV. Hopefully, we have very little exceptions.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to see 89% with 4 exceptions. You know, most of the time, we will counter if we have that much. I mean, if we have minor exceptions, we could possibly stick to 89. But if we have a major exception, it will get countered, just so that you all know upfront. Okay.
So standard 720 and below is 20%.
If you could go back to that page, James.
Yeah, it's gonna be 720 above will be 11, 720 or 700 above will be 80.
Again, this is all
660
LTV is all based on maximum loan amount too. So somebody's 700, 80% will be maxed at 500,000.
And John, you have this for us, right? Right?
She will. She
Yes,
will.
Yeah.
so just keep in mind, guys, you know, we are giving you guys the information here. Everything, all the matrices, everything is going to be here with us. So you guys are not going to be contacting them directly. There are rep for the wholesale side. So just keep that in mind, because I had some people asking me for their info. Everything's gonna go through us here. If you
Right,
guys.
I just want that.
No, I know, I have some people asking
Okay.
on here. So everything's gonna go through us internally here because, you know, of course, we want all of our, everything to be I-Core lending, right? So like he did these flyers, I'm gonna have you guys email these to me so we can shoot them out. And I'll send you guys the matrices for sure.
Is there any standard plan?
Well, our picture, can we put our pictures on these or?
Yeah, just send it to James.
And if
Spanish.
just like always, guys, when these presentations are over, we do record everything. So we can share the link as well, because I do have some people asking here.
Who do we send that we want the flyers made to?
To me.
You can send it to her, then she'll send everything
Yeah.
to me and John, then we get that made accordingly before we finalize it. We'll send it back to her. If she gives us a okay, then we're good to go on that.
Yeah, so
Also, if you
we'll
want-
get those flyers from them to have here in-house for you guys. So we do want to be able to make sure we have all that stuff, as far as the marketing, because we obviously have to keep everything ICOR. Well,
Is this the only color that come in?
Colors are chosen by you.
Yeah, well, not by me, by your president.
If you have other logos you guys want, just send it to James or Janelle. Send it to her, then we could custom create that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we do have in here that we can help, but if they have the formats already and they can shoot it over to us, we can adjust it for you guys. As far as the colors, it's not something I choose. Of course, they want to keep their, black and gold. So that's the reason they came with these colors.
Yes, this is great, thank you. How do we, you're suggesting to us as Salesforce for us to go find this business, to bring you the business? What are the markets that you're seeing coming to you from all the different companies that you deal with, without naming any names? Like, okay, we're seeing, this is where the business is coming from, this, and this type of line of businesses. But we can bring you more business.
I can give you an idea. So a lot of my brokers or loan officers, they like to target people that do taxes for ITIN. I have another company, AMAC, they do radio advertising as well for ITIN bars. Targeting real estate agents is a plus as well. Do you have any other suggestions?
There's one I've seen that people target lawyers to help with them getting residency here in the States. It's another one that I see people generate business from as well.
Correct.
Right. And
One of them, I believe, is Dominguez Firm, which is in our building. You guys could hang out there if you want.
It's social media,
Social media is really big as well.
I mean, if you guys are involved in any of the real estate, or the real estate community with the different, I mean, I know NAREP, I mean, that's a big Latino community there, and and I think each city has different representations of those groups. I mean, that's the old school way of doing it, is relation real estate agents, but I mean, that's still a big part of it, right? Because a lot of referral business comes from them. And yeah, the ones that John mentioned, as well as James, was a little spin-off of that.
Yeah, radio station is a big hit right now. Because I have a company, they literally called me 30 times in one day. They had so many hits for the radio station.
We actually, the other day, there was somebody who brought something up to us, and of course, you'll want to organize that here with your team, but if you do have, you want to do any kind of like lunch and learns with a group of real estate agents or something like that, groups of people that you are putting together, the same way that we're presenting this to you, maybe you want to get good at this, and you want to do that, you guys have a nice office here. And I would probably use that as much as I could. That's a good thing. If you guys have these things, you bring those to her, and then she will filter that on through James and John, and we'll go ahead and sponsor those as well, just so give us heads up on them.
So you say that an ICOR lending will present to our business
Yeah,
owners as our product, obviously, right now, that's,
Yes.
okay, so, okay,
Yes.
got it.
Yes.
Also, I know you guys have stuff going on in the weekend, like open houses, you know, if you guys need us to come by to me, James, if I'm available, I'll go. I'll support you guys 100%. Okay, so again, use us.
Yeah, same thing again, if you have those and you get a group of real estate agents determine you need us to come out here because you're like, hey, I got all these people, but I'm not quite sure I'm gonna present it the same way. Then we'll try and be as much in the background as possible to keep it more focused on ICOR, but we can help you with that as well.
How would you do that if your slideshow had green box?
Well, we probably wouldn't use the slideshow.
Matrix.
Hello, so in reality, we don't really have realtors here.
Because I think that'd be great, but
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah, we're just trying to be flexible to put it together to help you guys and show you whatever support that we can. Your business is important to us, and if you have a group of people, sometimes presenting the first time is really important. So, yeah.
In
exactly.
regards to the rates, you mentioned somewhere between the 9s and the 11s, right? That's what we mentioned. As far as any other costs involved with it, as far as points and that kind of stuff.
So right now, full doc, anything above 70.01 for full doc, we are charging 1 discount point. Okay. For bank statement, there is an extra 1.8 hit. Doesn't matter what the LTV is, but it also comes with one discount coin. The other thing we do charge is our lender fee, which is $12.95 underwriting, $2.95 processing, and $200 for doc fee, $17.90. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and that is on top of we as I-Core charge, is that correct?
Your origination.
That's correct.
That's on top of the origination, so, okay.
5% matters.
Well, 5%, keep in mind, that includes like escrow fees and all that stuff, lender fees. But in reality, you guys are able to charge maximum 2.75. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a limit here?
I believe that that's what you guys have meant,
Okay, so you guys are able to charge up to 2.
but I can definitely find
For
out.
BPC. Lender paid option, we only offer that for investments. Unfortunately, we don't offer it for foreign national or ITIN DSCR. We do have it for our regular elite DSCR. 1.5 is max lender paid, which is 1% hit towards the rate. Or that's the regular DSCR.
1% period.
Yes. That is if you want to make 1.5 for lender paid. Again, been here 3.5 years. I've rarely done lender paid, maybe twice. You know, it's just a disadvantage for the borrower.
Right.
You know, with that extra 1% hit. Okay. Any other questions?
So it's better to be borrow paid.
It'd be better borrow paid.
Especially with rates.
Wow.
Quick question, who are you guys using right now for ITIN?
Well, everything goes through I-Core. They don't source out, meaning their loan officers, our processing team, it's who assigns it to where it goes. But the
Oh, it's the
majority-
processing thing that assigns.
Exactly.
Who's a processor right now?
So right here, we don't have processors right now. I did have one, but she just stepped out. She had to go back.
So you need to take her out to lunch then.
I know, right? Christopher, Tanya, Darshan, that you would.
Okay.
So what they basically do is you know, it's, I believe we've been sending most of them to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So the
So
way,
if we build a relationship, we can request water to be put through, right?
I mean, yes, you know, you definitely can. That would be something you have to address with Tanya and Darshan. So you know, that's why everything goes through I-Core. It does not go through like where your loan officers are hitting up any direct account
Let's
management.
pick out Tanya and.
so what happens, what I-Core is doing the best service. They look at the loan, they look at the product, they look at the conditions, they look at everything in the loan, and they feel that if it's in the best interest of the client and I-Core lending, of course, $3, it goes to you guys because based on the relation, based on the fact that you guys can do this and we're not gonna have any issues. That's why you're getting all the business, basically. So yeah, the true relationship is not with anyone here, but it's the true relationship is with Christopher and Jesse, the president. They are your true relationship because they are, and Tanya, they are the ones that are looking after the best interest of the company.
Absolutely.
And with that relationship in mind, you have to fit into the best interest of the company. If that's not the case, then obviously we wouldn't be having such together.
And just for everybody who's on Zoom as well, keep in mind, guys, we did this because I've had in the last week or two, probably like 10 people come up to me asking me about ITIN. And the reason we brought James on board is because when we first started offering the ITIN program to our LOs, I mean, he was always very, you know, giving us all the information that we needed. We've closed loans with James. So that's why we brought James here. But, you know, everything does go through us because we don't want to have you guys fishing at who do I go to? It's much easier. Scenario desk, we're going to help you. We're going to guide you through where to put it. Because, you know, like I said, right now we've been using the majority green box. But at the end of the day, you know, we do suggest Scenario desk at I-Core Lending. I did place it on here. Scenario desk at icorelending.com. So you guys, you have the resources here, but we wanted them to come and give you guys more of the matrix, the breakdown, all the information you guys were asking me for. And I mean, I think this is the highest attendance I've had on Zoom. I had like over 20 people on Zoom, which was great because again, this is one of the biggest ones that I've had people asking me for information. So, I mean, like we mentioned, every time we're onboarding you guys is we're going to bring the best information to you guys so you can go out there and sell it.
Thank you.
So marketing would be me. If you guys need any marketing materials, I'll gather what we have either internally or what we can grab from them. And then scenario desk, just scenario desk at iCarlanding.com. Yeah, but yes, if you guys want to take out Tanya and then to lunch, yeah. See that, I'll jump.
Just to give you an example, our grants do have full access to our account managers and underwriters, okay? I'm
Well,
gonna
they
give you guys.
do.
They would do on the process,
Operations
on the
team.
process.
They're doing
and operations.
Like the same way, that's their operations team and the operations team.
It gets turned over to processing.
Yeah. They have actually
So the
been-
operations team is always gonna be either Deshaun, Tanya, and they usually handle most of that, because what we're trying to alleviate from our loan officers is having them go on a fishing expedition.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's, that's why we, we do that for them.
Then let me give you a heads up.
And processors as well, typically. as well.
Let me give you a heads up too. Our account managers, they work like a bunch of bill collectors. One main reason why they will call you, email you.
Yeah.
One main reason why we want to fund these loans on time,
Mhm.
or even possibly earlier,
Yeah.
okay?
And like I said, we have worked with them. We already know how they work, which is why we brought them on board to feed you guys more info on these products that are available. So we wanted to touch on ITIN mainly because, like I said, I have been, I've been requested several times on ITIN. So I wanted to make sure to get this information to you guys.
Yeah, and we've had an experience so far, the loans that we have, I've seen the process has been exactly like that. Their team communicates with our AE and whatever happens, they need escalation, whatever, but they already seem to have that down pat, so it's been working well.
So thank you, everybody on Zoom and in person for attending. I hope this was a lot of great information. And again, guys, if you do have more
You're welcome.
questions, feel free. If, I'm gonna share the matrix with you guys and then we can go from there.
Thank you so much.
Anybody on Zoom have any
One
more
last question.
questions?
One question.
So everybody, you're welcome, Maria. You're welcome, Chato, Ivan, Abby, thank you all.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liliana. Thank you all for being so patient with us.
Thanks for that.
Cindy.
Thank you.
coming.
James, don't steal my mic.
For an individual, they can invest it in their LLC, but has to pay something there.
Hi.
and everything like
Hi,
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
There's some lunch in the kitchen too, guys.
Oh, yeah, lunch is at the.
Muchas gracias, muy amable.
Are you the same thing?
Yeah.